then Governor Cathy pulled the plug in the 11th hour. Manhattan is more congested with traffic than ever, and New York City is left with a underfunded and wobbly transport system. My name is Richard SPEZIALE. Joining me tonight to untangle this mess, I have a man who is more knowledgeable than anybody I've ever met about urban transit systems. He's probably more knowledgeable than anybody you know, especially East Coast urban transit systems. His name is PRETLOW. Welcome, Deshaun.
Hello, Rich.
It's been way too long since we've been in front of a camera sharing a microphone. So let me get right down to it.
Totally.
You're a fierce advocate for public transport.
Oh, definitely.
You're an MTA customer.
Yes, still.
What were your first feelings when you realized that this congestion scheme was going to happen? What were your first feelings? Optimistic, pessimistic?
Pessimistic.
Pessimistic.
Yeah,
yes,
pessimistic.
sorry.
Yeah, pessimistic because it's like the knee-jerk reaction. It's always been that way, and it feels, it's like we know that you have to deal with the elephant in the room. The MTA has just been like the kid with the black card, and you can just run around, spend money, spend money, spend money, spend money. But then when you're broke, you're crying to mommy and daddy, which mommy and daddy is the state and all of the residents of the state, literally, that have to then foot the bill because you don't know how to manage your money and spend it correctly. And there's no one really to say, well, why are you spending so much money on these items when you could get these items which are similar? And because there's always a thing where like, well, it's New York. It's the 24-hour city. Like, it's the city that never sleeps. And so, like, we get that. But you can't let infrastructure fall apart. But is it supposed to maintain itself? It requires maintenance.
And we have recent history to prove that it does not maintain itself.
No, it doesn't.
Still catching up on that.
Correct.
Let me just, the idea of congestion pricing should appeal to me. I've been a Manhattan resident all my adult life. I've long resented the hundreds and thousands of vehicles that drive onto my island every day, and I'm choking on the fumes. Yeah. So this should be something that's right up my alley. But I had no faith in it, and the main reason was because we don't have, as you said, the infrastructure. The MTA cannot supplant all the cars coming in, because the cars come in from transportation deserts.
Yep.
When you look at the map, and they're continually, and Stanley, take the two shot. We want to see us both together every once in a while. Thank you, Stanley Mitchell, in the control room.
Stanley Mitchell.
They compare this to London. They compare this to Stockholm. Well, there is no comparison.
There is no. And you and I are on the same page with that. You're looking at two different cities, as we love to say, across the pond. Yeah. And there's a lot of common sense used there versus here. And I never forget, there was a woman when they were doing the public hearings to get public input about the congestion pricing plan at MTA headquarters on Madison Avenue. And if I remember correctly, the young lady is from Battery Park City. Right. And she said that when London implemented congestion pricing, anyone who lived within the borders of the zone for congestion pricing, if that is your zip code and that is where you live, they gave these residents a 90% discount because you live within the zone.
Exactly, yeah.
The MTA board turned around and told her straight to her face that we will not be doing that.
We'll not be doing that.
And so it becomes unpopular because if you're going to do congestion pricing, do it right.
Right.
And I think to me that was a no-brainer. So yes, we get all of these cars that come in, and they've been coming in for decades. Right. And like you said, transportation deserts, where I've now lived in New Jersey 10 years. And it is. And right now, if we think it's bad on this side of the water, you go right across the North River, aka the Hudson River, and look at how New Jersey Transit, and same thing. You look at New Jersey Transit, you look at New York City Transit, which our transit system, like all of them, they were either private companies that ran these systems, and like anyone can tell you, even in 2024, public transportation is not, I repeat, not profitable. It is not.
And it should not be expected.
And it should not be expected to be because it is a public service.
They don't expect the military to make a profit. They don't expect the Department of Sanitation to make a profit, or the police, but somehow
but they
this
provide
public
a service.
Yeah.
It's a public service.
Yes.
And so this thing where that for decades, the MTA, which is the Metropolitan Transit Authority, is notoriously known for they just spin haphazardly.
Right.
And then when the public cries out about it, when politicians speak out about it, there's always this there's no accountability.
Right, yeah.
There is
this
no
is the way it is, it's the unions, it's
and,
this,
and of
it's
course,
that.
but the thing is that we know that that's the nature of the beast too.
Yeah.
When you are providing transit services, those workers need to be protected by unions. But the crying poverty game gets tired. And the riding public feels like we're always looked upon, which we are. We have more fare increases on the New York side than on the New Jersey side. Like for us, we're getting ready to do a 15% fare increase July 1. And then 3% fare increases each year after that. And it has already been documented that we're still going to be in the red because, public transportation is not designed to be profitable. Now, you have to be, since we know that, sorry to cut you off, but since we know that, if common sense were common, everybody would have it, but we know they don't.
Would have it, yes.
But since you know that that's the nature of the business of providing public transportation, that means that you as an entity, which the MTA, New Jersey Transit, they're what are called public benefit corporations. And when you look at the MTA, for instance, which was created in 1951 by the state legislature, its purpose was to create this entity, which is the Metropolitan Transportation Authority Act, which is responsible for state systems like our regional rail.
It pulled in all the Long Island Railroad.
Consolidated all of that
and
under
it was supposed
an
to be
umbrella.
more efficient and more accountable.
And
it's
that
not.
ain't necessarily so.
Yeah. You've raised so many issues, but I think somebody who isn't from Manhattan might be curious, why do I care? I don't own a car.
Right.
And, and the most optimistic estimates about congestion pricing, the most optimistic, if this works, it will cut down Manhattan congestion by 14%.
But where?
They say overall. And that's it.
Is that for the whole borough?
That's for the whole borough,
That's crap.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you why.
Okay, tell me why.
If you look at where the congestion zone is, which is what they're calling the Central Business District.
59th
It's
down,
from the southern border, the southern tip of Manhattan to 60th Street, right?
Everything below Central Park.
Right. Is the congestion, the Central Business District, which is what the congestion pricing.
Half of the island.
Right?
Yeah.
So that half of the island, you think people don't put two and two together and they're going to go, and people already, for the few who do have cars that live in Manhattan, are already battling it out for parking spaces because now we have bike lanes, bus lanes that, don't even get me started, should have been protected, but I'll give you one even better.
Yeah, I mean,
they've already done it, and they've done it successfully with the transit ways. 14th Street. The first one was Fulton Street in downtown Brooklyn.
Yes, yeah.
Because in Brooklyn, for instance, which most people probably don't know, Brooklyn, if it was to secede right now, would be the 4th largest city in the United States.
In the United States, yes, huge.
And so, like, if you're from Brooklyn, for instance, you know that literally every bus that comes almost from the interior are designed to come to downtown Brooklyn. And so They come
So it
through
works.
Fulton Mall, which
Yeah.
we call it Fulton Mall, but Fulton Street and Livingston Street, those two, and they run parallel to each other.
Right.
And the thing is that Livingston Street was the newest kid on the block to be turned into a transit way. But see, you got to have you have to have good urban planners. And
Right.
I'll be honest with you, Livingston Street was not really designed well.
there's
Again,
a
because
lot-
in New York, it's the knee-jerk reaction to a lot of
There's
things.
a lot of different
Of course,
forces.
DOT,
like,
New York City DOT.
But you
and
mentioned bus lanes. Now,
Yes.
this is why I knew that this whole scheme would have to fail. Because
Yeah.
in London, and I got mixed. I was in London about a year after they implemented congestion pricing,
Okay.
and everybody hated it. And the word on the street was, it worked for about 6 months, and then it just got as congested. However, London is a lot better set up for that kind of thing. You look at a
Yes.
map of London, a map of the transport of London, it's like tree roots. Out every direction,
Absolutely.
there are trains going out.
They
in the
radiate
suburbs. They
outward.
radiate everywhere, in
Yes.
every direction. Now, I'm sure I will hear from somebody in the suburbs of the UK saying, well, I live in a transit desert. There's lots of transit deserts. I'm sure there are. But again, they seem to go out in every direction. In London, before they
Totally.
instituted the congestion pricing, they increased the buses. They improved the underground. They're constantly building new
absolutely.
lines. Here,
Their subway
what about
system is
our
older.
mayor?
Their subway system is older than ours.
Yes, it is. Yes, and
The
way,
tube system and way deeper.
way deeper. Now, what did the mayor pledge? 100 miles of bus lanes,
Yep.
right? He knew this was coming. He knew congestion price. He knew he was
Absolutely.
supporting congestion pricing. And how many miles have there been done? Like 8.
8 or 10.
8, under his under his whole.
Yeah.
So since that shows we're not ready for that, we
No.
can't support
The data
congestion
proves
pricing.
it.
Yeah.
We have the slowest buses in the entire country.
Yes.
New York
Yeah.
City.
According to Gridlock Sam, he says traffic is probably moving slower than the 1840s at this point.
I believe it.
And he said it's worse than pre-congestion.
Yeah.
Pre-pandemic now.
You can't build up a city, and again, New York City is an old city.
Yes.
And it's always updating and being renewed and being
And they're
revamped
changing the tire
and changing.
while the city is going 60 miles an hour
Exactly.
because it has to be like that.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the thing is that there are things that have to change in order of how we're doing things. When you look at the transportation network, now that we're veering away from MetroCard, for instance, and we're moving into Omni.
Right.
One New York, I always forget the last part, but it has good bones because the thing is that it's time for our system to be more of a regional system anyway.
Yeah.
Where
Like
I
an
should be
Oyster
able.
card in
Yes,
London.
correct.
Oyster card, yeah.
I should be able to go from a select bus on the Lower East Side, ride across, switch to my subway, take that same card, my Omni card, and if I want to, jump on Long Island Railroad and go out to, if I want to Ronkonkoma because I want to catch a flight out of the airport out there. But if the Long Island Railroad was set to a different pricing structure where it's regional, meaning like in a lot of places where you go to, like if you look at Chicago with the metro system, they learned by using the pandemic as the grand experiment. They were like, wow, we got ridership, and now post-pandemic, their ridership is through the roof where those big double-decker trains are carrying standing loads now because
So they have regional
they've changed the fare structure where it's more like regional pricing because they had all of these zones.
Right.
Like depending on the line, like it was like reading Rainbow on steroids where you were like, oh,
yeah.
okay. But that's a deterrent for a lot of people because if you're trying to get them out of their cars and use
them
the
a
public
complicated
transportation
system,
don't
yeah.
give them a complicated system. Kiss, keep it simple, student. Like,
right, yeah.
you
And
know,
that's one difference between London. Well,
Yes.
there's two big differences. The last time I was in London, I noticed, okay, trains, public transportation, buses, generally twice as much as New York.
Right.
And also, and I say generally because it depends on how they have a zone system. There's 4
Right.
zones. It's pretty simple.
It's
but
like in New Jersey.
yeah,
It's a zone system.
Yeah, but you have to, you know, here you take it one stop or you stay on the train for 30 hours.
That's right.
It's the
one
same fare.
Yeah. And when you look at a structure like that, that's what makes it attractive to use public transportation in a city like this.
Right.
But not everyone wants, or not everyone is accessible to a subway line.
Yeah.
You need buses. Buses are the backbone to a system like ours. It always has been.
And you can
it
route
gets-
a bus too. You
Absolutely.
can't like route a train
Nope.
where there is no
And
train tracks.
Listen, you know when the doo-doo hits the fan and it goes crazy underground, what do people do? They migrate out the ground and they will find something with 4 wheels and takes, or, you know, listen,
Right.
subway's out and then they jump on a bus. We've been doing that for a long time.
Yeah.
But the thing is, especially in Manhattan, there should be ways that there are things that should have been done first before they went to jump on this congestion pricing
Because
thing.
they basically did nothing. They basically said they
Right.
put up these things across the avenues,
didn't
they
tell no
basically
one.
said, yeah, and they basically said, okay, and it's going to happen. Made no provisions in public transit. No, made no provisions for anything
No.
except to collect the money. That's
Absolutely.
the only problem they solved.
Absolutely. And so now, you know, you're still looking at buses that move at, like, if you're lucky, 4 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It's like, goodness gracious, you can walk at the same rate of speed and save the 290.
Yeah.
But the thing is that we still continue to cater to a car culture.
Oh, yes.
And so, like, you know, when you look at, like, you know me, I love history. So you look back at when we used to have the elevateds. You know, we tore those down because someone said that they were eyesores and that, oh, we don't need them. But meanwhile, you look at Chicago, they kept their L intact. And that's why when you jump on the L, which the CTA is our
Right.
sister city and system, you can go anywhere like on the CTA.
And that's why we have to build a Second Avenue subway, because we had 2 elevated lines
Correct.
there.
You had a 2nd and 3rd Avenue L. Had
Yeah.
you never tore down the 2nd Avenue L, you wouldn't have to spend this money or figure out how you're going to get this money to
Exactly,
build
yeah.
the 2nd Avenue subway that you've only been trying to build since what, the early 1900s?
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, give me a break.
Right.
You know, or take avenues like Fifth Avenue used to be a 2-way avenue at one time. I learned that.
Yeah.
And when it was before the MTA, when it was Fifth Avenue Coach, I guess what's that now? The 5, the M5.
M5,
the bus,
yeah.
Those Fifth Avenue buses would end in the park and turn around
Right.
to go back.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you look at what you already have in terms of infrastructure, you mean to tell me, like, Fifth Avenue, for instance, you might want to make that into a transit way and make it both ways, and then maybe leave Madison Avenue and Park Avenue for cars. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, there are ways that we should be looking at, that we gotta kind of think outside the box instead of running to something like congestion pricing, and then and how it impacts individuals like us.
Right.
And even though we don't have cars, you know, the fact that you thought that this was going to, like, and 14% is nothing.
That's nothing, yeah. It's
You
status
know,
quo.
so like, what,
Let me
now the
bring up
bus is going to go 7 miles an
Yeah.
hour?
Let me bring up something else, too, because we're in Manhattan. I don't own a car,
Yep.
so it shouldn't affect me at all. In case you don't realize it, everything that is bought in Manhattan comes in on a vehicle,
True.
a thing with 4 wheels.
Yep.
If you get
Or
it from
more.
Amazon, you get
Yep.
it from Tiffany's, you get it from the bodega.
Yep.
From whatever you get.
It comes in on a
Yeah.
truck.
If it comes in by train
By
from
train,
Baltimore
yep.
or a boat from China,
Yep.
it still gets bought in by a truck.
Absolutely.
Therefore, all those trucks are paying or going to pay this congestion price. And I'm sure the big box stores, the Walgreens and the Duane Reades,
Totally.
they updated their prices 6 months ago to cover the cost, $35 per truck.
Yep.
And it's probably citywide too.
Yes.
So my point is, this thing is not going to help Manhattan much. It's only going to reduce the traffic by 14%. It's going to cost. It's going to cost Manhattan residents, and that's
Totally. Have
that's
you
what
done
I
Uber or
object
Lyft here in Manhattan?
to.
in
Not
particular?
lately, no.
So
but it's going. Yeah.
if anyone who uses Uber or Lyft, if you pay attention to your receipt when you finish paying your fare, there's already a congestion surcharge
Yes.
on that.
Yes.
Now, when I'm in Jersey
Now,
and I
why?
use,
And
that's
more
not on there.
fundamental question. They're trying to get people to not drive their cars into Manhattan, but we charge them a premium for private buses, private transportation. If you ride an Uber, because you don't have a car, you pay that damn tax.
Yes, there's a
Everybody's paying that
congestion
tax.
pricing surcharge
Yes.
already built in.
And that's what I object to.
Even people who do not ride MTA. Let's say that you ride a bike, you walk, or,
Yeah.
you know, you still are paying the MTA because what most people, this is why reading is fundamental. Look at your cell phone bill. Look at your utility bill. Look at these things where this has been not since yesterday. There's an MTA surcharge because you're in what is the 14 county service area.
And that MTA surcharge is very old because I remember
Yes.
it dating back to a time when I had a
landline.
landline telephone.
Talk about it.
I remember seeing
Absolutely.
that. That was that was decades
And they
ago.
transferred that to beepers and cell phones when people started going mobile. That surcharge became part of when you had a beeper bill,
Right.
when you had a cell phone bill. Even now, if you look at your cell phone bill, that is in there.
So I don't, part of the reason why I don't trust this thing, and it's going to happen, by the way.
It
She
is.
hit pause.
And let's make that clear.
Yeah.
It is a pause because in mainstream media, you're already hearing how the plug has been pulled.
I use that expression myself.
Yeah, but I mean, because you know how like when you know something, when we use pull the plug, we know what that means. Like, oh my gosh, this thing is frying and
The
it's
unit
smoking
is on fire,
and it's on
yeah.
fire, and I'm not trying to burn today, so you pull the plug.
Yeah.
But when you look at the reports, like I saw a report on CBS too. And they were talking about the day when Governor Hochul announced the postponement of congestion pricing. And I was so tickled because the two gentlemen were on, and one of the correspondents was like, "Oh, well, because of this postponement, you're gonna have to ride those 50-year-old cars that are on the A line just a little while longer." And I'm like, why would you tell people that? Because that's a lie.
Yeah.
You got to do research. The MTA, when they do procurement for new vehicles, for transit vehicles and things, they have their 5-year plans where these new subway cars that are coming in, which are the R211s, that money was earmarked years ago.
Years ago, yeah.
It's just that the delivery is delayed because, we did go through a global pandemic, and so they're late to the party, but they're here. Why would you tell people that, you're going to have to ride those 50-year-old cars a little while longer because the MTA doesn't have any money now because you're not going to get that $1 billion from congestion pricing? The signals are not going to get updated. Well, then why are we still going every weekend with subway changes out the wazoo? Because on 8th Avenue, they're wiring up CBTC. Stop telling people things to get a reaction out of them. I would really love for journalists to do their job. Please do the research so that when you go on here, and yes, that was a surprise to everybody that Governor Hochul did the pause on that. But she's been hearing that from people like you and I, business owners.
Everybody, yeah.
And the thing is, why would you not talk to people across the river who, there are people, trust me, I ride New Jersey Transit every day to come into the city. The ridership is still not the same because now people during the pandemic got very comfortable with their cars.
Yeah.
And so they're just like, go back to the train. I'm not doing that. They're very comfortable in their cars,
also
and they'll go
home,
to their
too.
little diners and Broadway shows and things like
Yeah.
that and pay all that astronomical rates for parking.
Right.
But then could you imagine on top of that, that's what you're banking on with this congestion pricing. Well, not you know what I mean. They're banking on the folks who are coming from what they call New York's western suburbs, AKA the Garden State,
Right.
The folks upstate. And this has always been an argument for the funding of the MTA anyway, where every time the MTA cries poverty, says, we don't have any money, we need more money. And they go to the state legislature and they say, we need more money. It's the folks up there in Rochester, Buffalo, all of those areas, the Finger Lakes, North Country,
They don't
the
want to
rest of the
pay,
state talk trash because they're like, so we don't have MTA services, but you want us to take state money to help pay for that.
Yeah.
And so, like, this is where, like, transparency is very important. And that's why the MTA right now is kind of like trying to convince everyone, well, this is the new MTA.
Well.
We do things differently. And I'm like, but you're not doing things differently enough, because if that were the case, you wouldn't be so codependent like a druggie on drugs for this congestion pricing thing to go through. And now you're freaking out. And it's like, oh, see, now we're dead broke. And what are we going to do?
And we haven't even gotten to the double whammy of people from Jersey who do drive in. They already pay a toll on the bridge
for the Port Authority crossings.
We want them to park and ride, and they have to pay another toll.
Listen to what you just said. Park and rides.
Yeah.
I am telling you, as a resident of the state of New Jersey for now a decade, what I have not seen anyone do on the Garden State side is increase the number of parking rides we have.
Right.
Because had congestion pricing be on schedule for June 30th, the parking rides we have now, there would not be enough room for the people who would leave their cars. And the Port Authority now, the bus terminal is going through like this grand remake that is crazy as...
That's worth another couple of shows right there.
That part, but the thing is, the capacity, it's over capacity as is.
Yes.
So if you were to do congestion pricing, it's not well planned, and there needs to be some tweaks or something, because do we need it? Yes, because
the MTA needs it.
The MTA definitely needs it, but we also need it to be equitable. Well, I know, right? The pie and the dream, but but it does. It does need to be equitable so that you can't make everyone happy.
Right.
But there should be a happy medium, so to speak, where folks are satisfied but not happy. But, because, again, you can't guarantee happiness. But
we got like 30 seconds left. Let's say this thing happens, and it will. They've built the infrastructure.
Absolutely.
There's those cameras are taking license plates right now as we speak.
Oh, so they can ticket the bus lanes. They said that on the news this morning.
The thing is up and running.
Yes.
All right. Let's say somebody hits unpause. It takes place. Everything works. There's $1 billion more in the 2026 transit budget. Where would you send that $1 billion? Where does it need it most?
Definitely in the subway.
In the subway.
Definitely in the subway.
Would it be signals?
It would be to finish modernizing the signals, and to continue to replace rolling stock, because,
those are old trains,
but they're built to last 40 years, but the way we use them 24/7, there's a lot of maintenance that goes into that.
Right,
so, definitely into the infrastructure of the subway system, and then an immediate, it should be like not even number 2, it should be 1.5. Deal with the bus system.
Right.
And get buses to move faster so that you can increase ridership, and people will not feel like, I'm not riding a bus because it takes too long.
Yeah. Well, to say that this thing is unsettled is like comparing the Mideast to like a neighborhood kerfuffle.
Right.
This is very unsettled. We're doing this about a week or so before congestion pricing was supposed to take place. Right. It is not, but it is coming. I want to thank my guest, Deshaun PRETLOW. We have not finished, and we'll have to get together and do more of this in the future. Thank you all for watching. Please step to the rear of the bus.
Indeed.